let's talk a little bit about Donald Trump. It seems that Donald Trump is awakened from his slumber.
When
He's still in his capital T marked pajamas, but he seems to be, after seeing, and do not deny, anyone who denies this is a shill. Donald Trump is reacting specifically to us questioning and essentially going out and condemning him and saying we're off his train. Because you know what? Yes, Tucker Carlson and Ann Coulter had played a big role in this, absolutely. But, Ann Coulter's audience is probably of equal size as the alt-right's collective audience. So do not ever underestimate our power now that many of us were criticizing the president. You get more out of Trump by criticizing him than you do by filleting him.
I agree with that, but what I was kind of curious because I heard you saw you talking about this earlier as well. How do you perceive that he's basically seeing that from us? Because I'd like to see how we can hone this a little bit better to make sure that we're getting what we want from Trump. How do you perceive him basically seeing that he's losing our support? Is it just generally like interaction on Twitter, or is it like the phone calls? How do you see this exactly?
Well, I think the way it works is that you have TRS, you have what is it, Spencer, you have all of these big media platforms for the nationalist movement, and they go out there and they say, you know what, I'm fucking off the Trump train. That travels up to Ann Coulter, who has already been seen retweeting Mike Enoch, retweeting Jazz Hands. She does follow
me. Yeah, she retweeted me at one point.
She retweeted Borzoi at one point. So, anyone that tells you that this has no relation and that you get more results from plan trusting or some nonsense. No, you get results by having a healthy distance from Trump and not praising him until you see actual results. Okay.
That's how you are with women as well. You always have to keep like a healthy distance.
Sure. Yeah. So what I'll tell you here is that the plan trusters got nothing from Trump for a year, even though they had the floor. But the people that are now turning on him, now we realize that his government is essentially useless. He's starting to do things with his executive power. He's starting to take risks. Because the reason he didn't do what we voted for on foreign policy is he was afraid that Israeli lapdog Mattis would whine about it. And so the only threat he has is in losing his people, losing his voters, losing his base. Even if it's just 10 or 20% of his base, that's still enough because that's actually a lot more than the margin he won by. So don't underestimate that. And we're going to have to, the way we can hone this in is that we're just going to have to continue having, when Trump does something good, you applaud him. When Trump does nothing, you attack him. And that's how it has to be from now on. That's the only way to get results from him.
Mm-hmm. What was I about to say? I just had a brain fart there. I forgot what I was going to say, but yeah. I mean, the mistake we made was basically in being hesitant to be critical. I encountered that kind of pushback very early on when we first started the sour on him, where people were. There were some people, nobody's really in the scheme of things, but who were getting upset because we weren't giving the man a chance. Just give Trump a chance. Well, there's got to be a point where you have to basically put the results out. Now I remember what I was going to say. I'm wondering if he's starting to get the sense of he's got nothing else to lose at this point, because I've always been of the opinion that Trump does things because he wants to be liked. He's got that, he's got that need for attention, and he thinks you don't think so, because I think no. I think he thinks he can be the guy that can win people over. That's the way I perceived him with some of these.
I think Trump. They have Trump blackmailed with this ridiculous Russia probe, and he understands. On the other hand, they have him blackmailed to the point where he's doing a lot of shitty stuff. But then on the other hand, he also understands that if he loses half of his base, even then when Mueller comes and tries to put him in prison so he dies in there, no one's going to fight for him. So that's kind of the rock and hard place he's in, and I don't even care. We have to push this guy to give us something. The Syria withdrawal is something. Now there's also another side to that where Trump might be doing some other stuff that's not so good, in the sense that the Syria withdrawal was something that he was compelled to do because America has been supporting these Antifa anarchist Kurds to keep the civil war going. But the problem is that Turkey doesn't like that. So what America was really risking, and they actually got close to this, Turkey was actually getting really close to Iran and Russia in the Middle East.
I remember that.
And if America loses Turkey, Turkey leaves NATO, let's say that, that's the end of America in the Middle East. And you know what and of course, what does that mean? That puts Israel in jeopardy, to say the least. So I think that that played a big part in it.
Do you see the whole thing with Saudi Arabia, where you have Congress basically pulling the funding on Saudi Arabia's involvement in Yemen? Do you see that because I believe, if I recall, Trump was not supportive of Congress doing that, because of basically you have that shift of our government towards Saudi Arabia? Do you think the pivot towards keeping Turkey in the sphere had anything to do with that?
Yeah, I think that. I think the main thing Turkey's unhappy about is the CIA and Zog arming the Kurds on their border, because those are their grave enemy. They're like a historic enemy of the Turks. So this is something that the fact that they've lost control in Turkey in terms of Erdogan, who is shitty in many ways, but he does operate as a kind of sovereign or self-made or self-propelled man. I think that they don't want to alienate him any further, because yes, America, doesn't matter what they do, America will be driven out of the Middle East. And they're going to have to kiss ass with the Turks and try and unite the Gulf states in order to do the Israel defending. So it's going to get really complicated. It might be more complicated than it seems now.
Yeah.
One thing I do like also is the call to pull troops back from Afghanistan, but that hasn't been ordered yet. So I'm going to hold my breath on that one. And I think, I think what says it all, what my proof for what I'm saying is that Chuck Schumer did this really angry press conference where he told the reporter that basically Trump made an agreement to throw the fight for the wall in order to get the budget passed through. And then last minute he didn't, because, and this is Chuck Schumer's words, because the hard right pressured him. Mm-hmm. That was his word. So Chuck Schumer was saying this. Okay.
Yeah, they're definitely perceiving that, if not us specifically, that, I mean, they're always living in fear of the radical right. They, they've gaslighted themselves into believing that the conservative wing has this, within its kind of think tank areas have this secret radical right that's just waiting in the wings, pushing things. So I don't know if it's they're perceiving that it's actually us or they're the boogeyman in their head, but either way, I mean, the effect is basically the same one way or the other. They're perceiving correctly that there is an element pushing down on Trump.
Yeah, I think it's very powerful when Tucker Carlson goes to the Swiss newspaper and says basically that he's off the Trump train, that he doesn't think Trump can do anything. That's very bad for you, because that's like your number one guy.